So I'm starting a live broadcast today, and I'm going to do this while I position the thing. This will give people a chance to log on and get on board. Um, Facebook has really upped their game on this. They only do the vertical mode. I guess they call it portrait, not the landscape. But I'm going to practice on some music. I have my favorite fan over there in the red chair. She already brushed out my hair, and I thought she did a pretty good job. She brushed her hair out, so we're all ready to be on. Um, as you used to say, I'm ready for my close-up now, Mr. DeMille. I don't know where that came from, but somewhere Mary watched a movie, and that line is now famous. This could be just a little bit higher, and I think I'm going to do it. See if that looks okay. But at the same time, while I do this, I also want to get me playing the piano. Before we start, boys and girls, I'm going to have a little lesson. Now, I falsely took credit yesterday for designing the facility in Mishawaka that is now owned by Standard Motor. Actually, I think the Lord did that. I think the Lord uses us in all sorts of ways, and all truth is from the Lord, and all lies are from the devil. The scripture says specifically that the Holy Spirit will lead us into all truth. I believe that's true of all of us. You say, well, I don't believe in God. Well, I don't think it makes any difference. He has a way of working with wild things. And he has many different ways to do it. He can do it through the people around us. He can do it through our hearts. Because even though, Terry Eshelman, my sister, you know her. Uh-huh. And you like her. Yeah. And sometimes you're a little bit scared of her. But you should always be a little bit scared of all Dittmers. We're just a little scary. Come on now, wave. There it went. So, what I'm going to do in this, again, this is all for Mary now. I'm not trying to establish some business brand or although I would love to preach the gospel to the whole world, I no longer feel it's my sole responsibility. I think there's others out there doing the job with me, such as my brother, Ted Dittmer, who's doing a great job in presenting the gospel to as many people as he can. And my other brother from another mother, Pablo Montez. He does a good job at presenting the gospel to as many people as he can get a hold of that will sit down long enough to listen. And so, it's no longer my job to spread it to everybody, but my job to help out. And one of the things that I help out with is I try to encourage other men, such as Pablo, and such as my brother, and such as Mark Black, my brother-in-law. I try to encourage him every time. He's a great gospel preacher. And my sister Terry does a good job at that too. She's always trying to grab people by the throat and say, you need to be saved. She's kind of fearless. So anyway, I'm going to practice a couple of songs. It looks like we're set up here. It looks like we'll get a good view of the piano and myself. I'm going to practice on that song that I did. This was the very first song I learned as with piano lessons from Clarence DeMass, who had a studio in downtown Gary and also at his home in Chesterton, Indiana. And I heard about Clarence DeMass from Dan Marino. He was kind of my best buddy during high school, one of my best buddies. Um, we hung together at church, and for a while we were the um, church and organ team at Gary Etna Church of the Nazarene, and we had a lot of fun. He could really play that organ, and he got his lessons from this same Clarence DeMass, and that's how I heard about it. But first of all, boys and girls, I'm going to teach you a little bit about organization and how to learn, how to get things done, the whole thing, and the 3 steps. And I've been teaching this to my daughters, and hopefully they'll pass it on to their children. But there are 3 steps to get things done, or 3 steps to learn it, or 3 steps about anything. It's called a triage. And the triage can be basically summed up, and it takes it all in if your mind is broad enough to use all the different parallels. The triage is life, organizing, and communication. And obviously, if you're in a hospital situation, first thing you want to do is you want to do everything you can to stabilize the patient and make sure that they can have a chance at life. In the 5th element of science fiction are supernatural entities that lived forever that looked like little robots. Were taking away the 5th element, and the thing was closing, and they were going to die. One of them was going to die, and the priest was down there trying to help them get out. Help him, come on, escape. And he said, time, the creature said, time is not important, life is. Well, it's not exactly true, but it does point out the emphasis that the first thing you want to do is keep your patient alive. And that's why there's all sorts of slogans. In the union, they had safety meetings, and what they hung over, or repeated over and over again, is safety first. So your first priority is life. Try to keep the person alive. The second priority is organization. And that actually has to do with time. You organize things so that you take less time to do things. And the third priority is communication. I'm kind of slow on this. I don't like to spend a lot of time communicating. I'm trying to do more as I get older, and hence this very thing that we're doing now. You gotta go? All right. Mary is going to excuse herself for a moment, but she'll be back. All right. So anyway, that's the 3 priorities: life, organization, and communication. Sarah Dell and Linton Savage, hello, hello, hello. All right, so I'm going to practice on this song. This is called Sentimental Journey. This is the first song I learned at the studio of Clarence DeMass in downtown Gary, who also taught my friend Dan Marino. And it has a walking boogie in it, written right into the song, and that's one of the things. It also has little grace notes, which is another thing I learned very early. And this was my first piano lesson. I'm going to do it. We need to turn that down so you can see my fingers better. How's that? You can't see it all. Not a shame. So yes, boys and girls, when you watch me and Mary, we not only tell you what's going on, we give you lessons. You still can't see it. I'm going to turn it more this way. Still can't see it. All right. As you can see, Mary is my biggest fan and my best promoter. If she could get back on the phone all day, she'd be calling churches all over and saying, you need to have Mike Dittmer come play at your church. She did that while she was up in Detroit. I was sitting in the audience listening to my brother Pablo speak, and I love brother Pablo. And she kept hinting to me and to anybody else that would listen. She said, my husband plays the piano. You need to have, because they were singing a cappella, and they had a nice baby grand there in the auditorium. And we were listening to Pablo, and someone was leading this. We were going to listen to Pablo, and somebody was leading the singing, and Mary kept saying, you need to tell him that you play the piano. And she was just doing everything she could to promote me into that. So that's part of the reason why I play now, is because now she feels like her mission is being accomplished, which is to get me to play the piano anytime I can. As you can see, I've improved a little bit, because I'm going to tell you a little secret here. Not really. I mean, everybody knows this, but you're going to hear it from me. Practice makes perfect. Now, the thing about practice is something that I'm learning a lot as I get older. As you get older, you slow down, but that doesn't necessarily make all things bad. There is a whole art form of slow practice called Tai Chi, where you walk slowly, and you practice that. And it's nice because you don't hurt any joints doing that. You don't. Unlike the martial arts where you move very fast, you can injure yourself or aggravate old injuries, but you don't do it with Tai Chi. And so the nice thing about getting older is I can move slower. I get more things done sometimes when I move slower. And I even noticed that when I was heavily loaded with work, and back in the old days, when I was, 55, when I was between 55 and 62, I was working a job at Ristance on the towers. Might have been, I'm saying 55, 62 is my age, not as what year it was. when I was between 55 and 62, I was working on the towers. That was going to be a temporary assignment. I stayed there. Well, it wasn't all their fault. After a while, they started asking me, well, you could go to day shift now. And I said, well, I started thinking about that, and, I am not necessarily the most patient of men. And although I very rarely have harshness in my voice, they still can sense when I don't like what they're doing. And it's stronger than you might think when it comes from a preacher. And I actually was dangerous enough where that if I corrected somebody, they sometimes would get so discouraged and they would quit. And I had 2 people quit the plant after I corrected them. Now, I did correct them in a kind of an embarrassing way. But in fact, I got so well known for that, some people came up and says, could you go talk to somebody for me? Maybe they'll quit. So, and I was so scary that my boss, Tom Caudell, actually used me as a means of instilling fear in an engineer. And he called him up and he said, these are the words that he said. He said, Mad Dog, which was my nickname, he said, Mad Dog is going to hurt you if you don't get down here and correct these alarms that are going off too quickly. Now, I never said that. I was upset, but I never said I was going to hurt him. But sure enough, he ran down there and corrected that. I mean, he was down there in 30 seconds and corrected those alarms. Because Tom used my name to instill fear, Bad Dog. And I never cussed anybody out. I never yelled, but I did have a way of getting under their skin so that they never wanted to come back and see me again. And so, it's not entirely the fault of other people. But here we are. I just practiced my song for you, and now I'm going to probably do something spiritual because today is Sunday, and I want to do something. And all I'm doing is practicing, and I'm doing it kind of slow, a lot slower than I did when I was younger. I used to play so fast that you couldn't see my hands. And I would hit the piano so hard that it would cause stuff on the piano to vibrate. And Janie was standing by the piano one time when I was playing Keep on the Firing Line, which I am not able to do at this point. I was playing Keeping on the Firing Line, and Keep on the Firing Line had a bass and a chord, and you did that with one hand. So to do that, you had to do it fast. You had to do it fast. You'll have to imagine how fast I could do it when I was in, but I used to do it so fast that you could hardly see my hands. And there was a plant on the piano, and I was banging away on Keep on the Firing Line, and it was slowly vibrating to the end of the piano. And Janie was standing there, and Janie reached down as it fell off the piano and caught it. Well, I don't do that anymore. I do things slower now. And it's okay. It's okay if you have to slow down, because you still get a lot of benefit out of doing things slowly. And I learned that even when I was on that job. I'd stop every so often, and I was busy up to the wazoo. I had a church that I pastored. I was also one of the musicians. Rick and I handled the music. Rick Van Wetchel and I handled the music. And I had my own home that I was working on, and by working, I mean, I'm not a great construction person, but I did do a lot of the work, the lawn work, some other things that I'd fix up. And then with the extra money I had from my income, we would hire people to come in and do things. They had people come in and put a roof on. We had built a new addition on. That was all hired. And I was super busy, but even then, it still paid for me to stop every so often and look around and say, what is my next step? And I would suggest that to you, boys and girls. since I'm doing a little bit of preaching as well as teaching here, I would say that every so often in your life, and maybe several times a day, stop and ask the Lord. Those are called arrow prayers. Nehemiah did that. Now, he was a busy man. He was a taste tester for the king, and he was a very busy job all the time. And he would stop every so often because the king would ask him for advice, and he shot an arrow prayer up to the Lord and said, Lord, what should I say? And the king asked him for advice, and he said, it would be great if our people could go back to their homeland. And that's how that all started. He was a bivocational pastor, as I was. And being a bivocational pastor is a good thing. Being a minister without being necessarily ordained or a full-time church is a good thing. We need more of those. We need more Sunday school teachers. We need more people that will volunteer their work for the Lord. And God has a way of handling that. Watch the example of the Good Samaritan, how he did it. And by the way, I consider the Good Samaritan one of the first bivocational pastors. Well, not the first. He was one of the ones that we see an example of in the Bible. And he had this problem with a guy that he found, the poor, probably Jewish young man that fell among thieves, and they beat him up and almost took his life and took all his money. And nobody had time to stop for him. The education didn't have time, religion didn't have time, and other businesses didn't have time, and they were of his faith. But the Good Samaritan, who was from Samaria, and they were supposedly enemies of the Jews at that time, he stopped and helped. And the way that he did it was he did it on the way. And you can get a lot of things solved if you'll just take the time to do it little by little on the way as you do. And so I got a lot of my stuff done when I was working and raising a family and had a home and had a church that I was pastoring. And I was getting a lot of things done on the way as I worked. And so this is all good stuff. All right, now today I'm going to practice on What a Day, and it's slower than you'll hear it in church, but still. I'm going to sing too. Sorry about that. Music lesson for the day. Whenever you want to move up a fourth in your chords, you add a seventh to your chord. It's almost like the seventh is a signal. We're going to move up a fourth. Well, the fourth is an interval, but the seventh is actually a minor seventh on the chord. And someday I'll explain to you how all that works, but not today. So whenever you want to move up a fourth, you add a seventh. There is coming a day when no heartache shall come, no more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saves by his grace. And when he takes me by the hand and leads me through the promised land, what a day, glorious day that will be. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. Did you enjoy that, Mary? See, she's my biggest fan. And she would also be my biggest agent if she was out there on the phone calling churches. She said, you need to have Mike Dimmer come to your church. But because of COVID-19, and also because we're older now, and also because we're both trying to get settled in. We don't do that now, but we can do it this way. There's a couple of more people. By the way, here's another musician, Jacqueline Dodds Putzman. She is an outstanding musician. I think she was first viola on the Gary Symphonic Orchestra, and her and I always had a lot in common because we both love music. She knows Jerry Lewis, the comedian. So yeah, she's quite an outstanding. She was valedictorian, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie. But anyway, she's on the audience. I'm going to wave at her. Come on. There it goes. Let's wave. Hi, Jackie. I knew two Jackies in high school. One of them was Jackie Dodds, and the other one was Jackie Duffy. They were both musicians. Belzer. Delynn Belzer McDaniel. She was in our youth group from the North South Dakota district on the Impact team. And of course, I am known for liking hot sauce on my food. I know. And I was putting hot sauce on one of the dishes that they served for us at a church. And Delynn, she was there. She was in the youth group. And she said, I'll try some of that. And she did. And before the dinner was finished, we were having a hot sauce contest. And of all of the kids, she won. She could put the most hot sauce, Tabasco, on her food and still eat it. And you have to be careful with that because that gets to be addicting, that stuff does. You can ask my daughter about that. Anyway, so she's here, Impact Team, and say hi to, I'm going to wave at her now, and we'll say, hi, Delynn. I'm going to wave at her too. Mary's waving at you too. Well, it's good to have you all tune in. And like I said, this is not a formal session. This is just a practice for me. My agent over here in this seat says I need to practice more on the piano. That's part of the reason why I'm down here is I can get the piano out, and we're all on the same floor. Here we are on the first floor together with the piano. In Michigan, it was downstairs in the basement, so we didn't use it very much. Of course, I also spent some money and had it tuned, and that helps a lot. I'm going to get it tuned again soon. All right. Fitch, McDaniel Fitch. All right. She says, hi, you guys. Hi. Am I saying this like Delynn? Hi. Mark Hunt is watching. Oh, she says, I don't even like that much hot sauce now. Yeah. Yeah, it comes and goes with me, too. Sometimes I do without it for days and days and weeks and weeks and months, and then somehow I get started on it again. My latest substitute for hot sauce is Tony something or other Cajun seasoning, which is a little milder. And I just put that in everything. And Mary likes it too. I put it in our scrambled eggs and she eats it. Mary has a story to tell about hot sauce. She says she doesn't like hot sauce. That's not exactly true. Her son, my stepson Don, was staying with us when we were first married. He had the kids downstairs in the basement. And he'd gone out and bought a bag of, and they were called the world's hottest chicken wings. Yeah. And I would say that their description was pretty accurate, wouldn't you?
Yes.
And he evidently thought that he liked them, but he didn't eat any of them. He had 20 in the bag, and he gave them to us. He says, "You like hot sauce, don't you?" And to me. And I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Well, here's a bag of 20 wings for you." And so being the gracious person, I thought, but at the same time rejoicing in the fact that I get to eat all 20, I offered Mary, who I thought for sure would turn me down, one of those 20 hot wings. And she said, "Sure." Shocked me. But and part of that is Mary is more versatile on her taste than she likes to admit. And the second thing is Mary's very competitive. I'll say, "I love you," and she'll say, "I love you too." Then I'll say, "I love you 3." What does she always say? "I love you 4," because Mary will not be outdone. Very competitive. And so here we started on these hot wings, and I ate one, and then I offered her one. "Would you like one?" And she said, "Okay." My mouth dropped open, my eyes bugged open. I was kind of surprised, but she ate it.
I did.
Now I couldn't eat all 20 of those in one sitting, but I ate another one in just a little bit. And I thought, well, I should probably offer her another one. And I said, "Would you like another one?" And she said, "Okay." So when she says she doesn't like hot food, she's not being entirely honest. And also, she's very competitive. Because when I was done with those 20 wings, guess how many Mary ate? 10 out of the 20. So this is the thing about women, ladies, is they say one thing, but sometimes they mean something else. They have the ability to change their minds and their thoughts very quickly, like that, which makes them very unpredictable. Now, why in the world would God create something so unpredictable? Because he finds them very interesting. And I guess he thought I have the need to be entertained a lot. And so he hooked me up with the most interesting woman I have ever come across. And I've come across some interesting women before, but Mary is probably up there in the top 10 or 100 or however many there is worldwide. Interesting women. Okay, well, are we about ready to say? Yeah, she said hi, you guys. We said hi back. Mark Hunt is watching. We're going to wave at Mark. Hi, Mark. We're both waving, and I want to hit this wave here. Well, come on now. Donna? Now I have my Facebook account is public, and so I have a lot of friends, 1,200, and usually that's where Facebook thinks I'm safest at is 1,200. They won't let me get a whole lot more, and I haven't tried to do that because when I tried making more friends, Facebook reprimanded me. He says, "We don't want you being spam." I said, "Well, I am so sorry." So I don't go out of my way to make friends on Facebook, but I'm very accepting of anybody. If you have a good-looking account, timeline. If it says something about the Lord, or if it's something very positive, and if it's not a bunch of whining, uh, and you try to make friends with me, I will go ahead and, I've had to defriend very few people, just a few, and so I have a lot of friends that I don't really know well. They're all over the world, but I do get to know them as time goes on. And here's a Donna, and Donna Rose. I don't know who she is, but I'm sure she's a good friend and a good person, because I do that. I check all their accounts. I stalk through their timeline. So I'm going to wave at Donna. Hello, Donna. Want to wave at Donna? Mary's getting used to this. She's very private, but she's getting used to Facebook a little bit, because Facebook is kind of fun. There's a lot of nice people on there. At first, when we were first married, she said, Facebook isn't real. And then one of our friends, Barry Skalski, offered some tickets to a Weird Al Yankovic concert, and I accepted them. And so we met together with Barry, and we met at the Crown Point Theater, Maryville Theater. I'm not sure exactly how those boundaries are, but we met there and picked up the tickets, and we had one of our first dates was at a Weird Al Yankovic concert with Barry, a Facebook friend. And that's when Mary began to realize there are actually some real people there in those accounts. So yeah, you guys are real. Here is so we said hi to Donna. I'm going to wave back to her. Come on now. And now we're saying hi to Jane Christopherson.
Oh, okay.
She's was one of our members of the Insights Quartet when we first started, and she and along with her husband Dave at the time moved up to North Dakota.
Oh.
And they were so, and I had already gone through North Dakota with Len and Dave Royer, and toured there. And those people in North Dakota just love music. They're crazy about music.
That's what I've heard.
And I thought, well, that can't be too bad for me. And so when an opportunity arose, I took a church up in North Dakota, and Dave and Janie were just a little ways away, like 250 miles, but still, that's nothing in North Dakota, at Grand Forks, I believe. And we got to see him at District Assembly. And so Jane is here. Let's wave at Jane. Hi, Jane. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Finish it up. All right. So we've talked about the triage of life, which is almost true of everything. First is life itself. The second is organizing. And the third is communication. You have to follow that up with community. You just can't be in a shell by yourself. You have to get people involved in whatever it is that you're doing. It's true of everything. So if you're wanting to get something done, put a triage on it. First of all, what do I need to do to stay alive? And get that going first. For me, in the morning, with me and Mary, we have to fix breakfast. If we don't eat, we'll starve. So that was part of it. And then as I'm fixing breakfast, I organize on the way. And then now I am communicating or bringing other people. And I've found with communication that both adages are true. There are some times when you should communicate less. There are some times when you should communicate more. I like to lean, recently I used to be very open and communicative with everybody, but I found out there's a place for discretion where you just sit and be quiet. Now you can take that too far too. Stalin did. He never let anybody know what he was thinking. And so he had all sorts of secret evil things working for him. But discretion used correctly is a wonderful thing, used in balance with openness. So, all right, that's the lesson for today. That's my piano practice for today. That's our. We're going to go ahead and finish up. Love you, everybody, all of you guys. See, I even put my teeth in for you. And put some shorts on and stuff. I don't have shoes on because I'm not going outside. But we'll do this from time to time. I'll practice, and as you see, I'm getting better because that's what practice does. If you repeat something over and over again, you get faster and faster at it. So, God bless. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.